I want to go now to a member of Congress to discuss what's happening on Capitol Hill as it pertains to the funding for government, in particular, Department of Homeland Security. Joining me now is Congressman Marlin Stutzman, who serves on the House Budget Committee as well as the Financial Services Committee. He represents the 3rd Congressional District of Indiana. Congressman Stutzman, welcome back to Washington Watch. Thanks so much for joining us.
Tony, great to be with you. Thanks for having me today.
So we have, till the end of the week, till end of actually Friday, before another shutdown, a partial shutdown, the Department of Homeland Security. What are you hearing?
Well, Tony, again, it just seems almost unrealistic that Democrats would want to shut down one of the most important agencies to protect the people. And again, their focus is on ICE because of the incidences that happened up in Minnesota. And ICE is already funded through 2029. And so their frustration, or what they're trying to leverage with this last appropriations bill related to Department of Homeland Security, doesn't affect ICE. It affects FEMA. It affects, of course, the agents that work for us at the airports. It works for the Coast Guard is another agency that it'll affect. So these aren't agencies that it's going to really affect anything related to the issue that Democrats have related to immigration. It looks like this could be a partial shutdown if there's not some sort of an agreement by the end of this week.
I was talking with the Speaker about this over the weekend, and the House Speaker, Mike Johnson. So, as you pointed out, ICE isn't affected by this. They're funded. They have all the money they need. But when you look at TSA, which covers the airports, you've got FEMA, as you talked about. I mean, if you've been in certain parts of the country, we've had a significant cold snap that has come through. Yeah. These agencies don't have any surplus. That was used up in the last government shutdown. So it's not certain how long they can go without this funding.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And that's what I guess is, to me, it just doesn't make sense, is that Democrats are willing to go to the wall, shut down agencies that help us as Americans, just making sure that travel continues to operate smoothly, making sure, of course, after these storms that we had in the Southeast and in the South, that FEMA has its abilities to be helping where they're needed. So to go and say that this is going to somehow affect the outcome of what ICE is doing is just not the case. And so it makes no sense. But Democrats, again, are showing that they're willing to fight for the illegal in this country more than they are to fight for the American citizen.
Now, the House is scheduled for a recess next week. I imagine if this is not resolved, that might be canceled, or I mean, what might the possible outcomes be here?
Well, I think a lot of it's going to fall to the Senate. We already passed in the House the ability to move ahead and keep DHS funded. That deal was negotiated in the Senate, and they're going to have to figure out sooner or later whether they can come to some sort of agreement. Senator Fetterman is, of course, said he's willing to vote to fund DHS. I was talking to him actually last week on the Senate side, and he just shakes his head. He's like, I don't understand my own party that they're willing to shut down the government for just common sense legislation. So this is going to fall back on the Senate side at some point. I don't know what's going to happen. They're going to have to somehow get around the filibuster rule, because they seem to be, Chuck Schumer and the Democrats are willing to shut down these critical agencies for some sort of leverage when it comes to stopping ICE and the issues that they think that ICE is having. But again, this is not going to affect ICE. This is only going to affect other agencies that affect the American people.
I want to move on to another topic. However, before we do that, I know that the negotiations have been primarily between the White House and the Democrats that are holding up this funding bill. Any idea the specifics? I know we've heard in general, one is the mask, one is they want judicial intervention, they want warrants for some of these arrests. What are we hearing are the areas of agreement and what are non-starters?
I haven't heard, Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer put out a list that they were expecting from the White House. I think the one that's most egregious to many of us is the masks. I mean, we need to protect law enforcement. They're doing a very difficult job. And frankly, these agitators are making the job much more dangerous because they're going out and standing in the way between our law enforcement and those who they are pursuing. And so the masks would be a deal breaker. We have to protect not only our law enforcement, but protect their families. We don't want to see their names and their faces being spread around to, across the internet to where people would then harass them.
Let's move on to the SAVE Act, Save America Act. That is something that the Republican leaders in the House plan to bring to the House floor. Now, this is a new and improved version of the Safeguard American Voters Eligibility Act. So tell us what this bill does and why there might be opposition in the Senate.
Well, again, we're seeing this polling that's been floating around the last several weeks, not only just amongst conservative networks, but also, networks like CNN and others that are showing how much support the American people are wanting to see legislation passed that would make sure that you're a citizen of the United States before you have the ability to vote, that you have a photo ID. In the House, we've passed the SAFE Act, which already puts some of those safeguards in place, but we're really trying to put pressure on the Senate to say, look, this is something that is bipartisan. The American people want to be sure that their vote is protected. A very good friend of mine and a friend of yours, Tony, in Detroit, Pastor Lorenzo Sewell, he was telling me his congregants went to go vote in Detroit in 2024, and they got to the ballot box and they said, well, you've already voted, when they hadn't. And so people are stealing ballots. And so this is a bill that would put more safeguards in place to be sure that mail-in ballots aren't abused. States like California and Illinois and others, California in particular, they do mail-in ballots. It sounds like a good idea, but what's happening is a friend of mine said he got 4 different ballots at his house, all under his name, and he said somebody could turn all 4 of those in and they would probably never be found. So this goes an extra step to be sure that mail-in ballots, there are safeguards there to be sure that the American voters' vote is protected.
We just have about a minute left. I want to get your response to this. Chuck Schumer in the Senate, the minority leader, calls it the Jim Crow 2.0 bill. How do you respond to that?
Again, I think that, Tony, we've seen this happen over and over where the left, if they don't have a good argument, they just try to boil it down to, it's racism. That's just not the case. In fact, that's, Lorenzo Sewell is an African-American pastor from Detroit who is defending. In fact, he's actually suing the state of Michigan to defend people who have the right to vote in Detroit who had that right taken away from them. And I think that that's what a lot of times the left just says, well, we don't have a good argument here, so they're going to argue that it's somehow racism, and that's just not the case. I mean, if anything else, we're defending every American's right to vote and that their vote is protected, because that's the one thing that we as Americans have and should always protect it.
Congressman Stutzman, always great to see you, my friend. Thanks for joining us today.